Hello, and welcome to today's English listening practice. This is a history story at B2 level. The topic is the story of the printing press and Johannes Gutenberg. This story is important because the invention of the printing press changed the world. It made books cheaper, knowledge easier to share, and it helped to shape the modern age. Let's begin. In the early 15th century, Europe was very different from today. Books were extremely rare. Almost every book was copied by hand, letter by letter, page by page. This work was done mostly by monks or professional scribes. Imagine a large monastery. Inside, in a quiet room, several monks sit at wooden desks. Each man bends over a manuscript, holding a quill pen made from a goose feather. They dip the pen into ink and carefully write on parchment, which is made from animal skin. Every letter must be written with perfect accuracy. One mistake could ruin the entire page. Because of this slow process, it might take 1 year, or even longer, to create a single book. The result was that books were expensive, often costing as much as a small house. Only kings, nobles, and the church could afford them. Ordinary people almost never saw a book. Most could not read at all. Knowledge was controlled by a small elite group. Education spread slowly, and ideas traveled only by word of mouth or handwritten letters. This was the world Gutenberg was born into. Johannes Gutenberg was born around the year 1400 in Mainz, a city in Germany. We don't know the exact date, but historians believe it was between 1395 and 1405. His family was not poor, but not royal either. His father worked with the local mint where coins were made. This gave young Johannes knowledge of metals and precision work. As a young man, Gutenberg trained as a goldsmith. He learned how to cut, polish, and shape metal. He also learned how to work with presses, which were used for stamping designs into coins or creating patterns in cloth. Gutenberg was curious and inventive. He wanted to use his skills to do something new, something useful. But he also faced challenges. At one point, political unrest in Mainz forced him to move to Strasbourg, where he continued his experiments. In Asia, printing had already been used for centuries. In China and Korea, woodblock printing and movable type had existed long before Gutenberg's time, but in Europe the idea was not yet developed in a practical way. Gutenberg imagined a system where each letter of the alphabet could be cast in metal. These small metal letters, called type, could be arranged in a frame to form words and lines. When a page was finished, the letters could be reused for the next page. This was revolutionary. Instead of carving a whole page in wood, printers could now rearrange the letters quickly. Instead of writing by hand, they could press inked letters onto paper. But the invention required solving many problems. First, what kind of metal mixture would be strong but also easy to cast? Second, what kind of ink would stick to the metal and transfer clearly to the paper? Third, how much pressure was needed to print letters without tearing the page? Gutenberg spent years experimenting. He created a special alloy of lead, tin, and antimony for the letters. He designed a new oil-based ink, thicker than normal ink, so it would stay on the type. And he adapted a wine press, a common machine in Germany, to apply even pressure on the paper. Slowly, his idea became a real machine, the printing press. By the early 1450s, Gutenberg was ready to test his press on a large project. He chose to print the Bible. At that time, the Bible was the most important and most copied book in Europe. The Gutenberg Bible, completed around 1455, is sometimes called the 42-line Bible because most pages contain 42 lines of text. It was printed in Latin, the language of the church. Historians believe that about 180 copies were made. Some were printed on paper, others on expensive parchment. Although the main text was printed, decorations and illustrations were often added by hand. This gave each copy a unique and beautiful appearance. The quality of the printing surprised many people. The letters were sharp, clear, and uniform. It was hard to believe they had not been written by hand. Today, fewer than 50 Gutenberg Bibles survive, and they are among the most valuable books in the world. One complete copy can be worth tens of millions of dollars. The printing press did more than produce books. It transformed society. First, it supported the Renaissance, a period of art, science, and learning. Scholars could now share their discoveries more easily. Artists could publish treatises on painting or architecture. Thinkers could debate ideas across borders. Second, it fueled the Reformation. In 1517, Martin Luther wrote his 95 Theses, challenging the Catholic Church. Because of the printing press, his words were copied and spread across Germany in just weeks. This would have been impossible in the age of handwritten manuscripts. Third, it helped the rise of science. Astronomers, doctors, and mathematicians could publish books with detailed diagrams. Other scientists could study, criticize, and build upon their work. This exchange of ideas laid the foundation for the scientific revolution. Finally, it prepared the way for modern democracy. When more people could read, they could also form opinions, discuss politics, and demand rights. The printing press gave ordinary people access to information that was once controlled by a small elite. Ironically, Gutenberg himself did not become rich. He borrowed money to fund his press, and eventually his business partner, Johann Fust, took control of the workshop. Gutenberg lost much of his equipment and profits. He continued working, but with fewer resources. He died in 1468, not knowing how famous his invention would become. In fact, for many years, his name was almost forgotten. It was only centuries later that historians recognized him as the father of modern printing. The printing press has been called the most important invention of the second millennium. It marked the beginning of the information age long before computers or the internet. Later inventors improved the press, making it faster and more efficient. By the 17th century, newspapers began to appear, giving people regular access to news and ideas. By the 19th century, industrial printing machines could produce thousands of pages per hour. And today, digital printing and online publishing continue the work that Gutenberg began. Without the printing press, mass education would have been impossible. Democracy, science, and global culture would have developed much more slowly. It is no exaggeration to say that Gutenberg's invention changed the path of history. What can we learn from Gutenberg's story today? First, innovation often begins with a dream. Gutenberg imagined a faster way to copy books, and he pursued it with determination. Second, invention requires patience. He spent years experimenting with metals, inks, and presses. He failed many times before finding success. Third, even if one person does not become rich or famous, their ideas can still change the world. Gutenberg did not enjoy wealth, but his work transformed human history. You have just listened to the story of Johannes Gutenberg and the invention of the printing press. We explored the world before printing, Gutenberg's life and invention, the spread of the press, and its enormous impact on history. This story shows us that one idea can transform the world. It also reminds us that knowledge is powerful and that access to information can change society. Thank you for listening to this English practice lesson. Keep practicing every day and see you in the next story.